Hi, it's Glenn here at rebelplaybook.com, and today we're here in New York with Claude Silver, Chief Heart Officer at VaynerMedia. Claude, thanks for welcoming us into your office.
Glenn, it's great to have you.
So
lovely,
nice to be here.
Lovely to see you.
So Chief Heart Officer, that's a great title. Tell us what that is.
It is the greatest title. I'm so honored to have it. So I oversee all people operations here, anything that has to do with people and their experience. And that starts with the candidacy and then all the way through their tenureship. And it even continues when they leave this building and they go someplace else. Anything that has to do with people, I am all about. So whether or not it's problems, recruiting, resourcing, raises, growth and development, one-on-one coaching, bickering,
Drama and tears.
Drama, tears, and joy. It's, you name it, and culture.
And you've got a unique spin on, I guess, the classic HR department, haven't you? I mean, it's kind of, the classic HR department might be quite reactive and in the backgrounds, but you're very much front-footed here on people, aren't you?
I am. Well, I'm following Gary's lead.
Okay.
So Gary is a people-first CEO. He's an operator. He's on the floor, and he is very much 24/7 available. And so I am too. In order to scale Gary, I need to mimic Gary as much as I can, but in Claude Silver style.
Is that even possible? Even could you do that?
We don't even look alike. But in Claude Silver style. I am without a doubt 24/7 available. The door is always open. There are ways to contact me, but more than anything, I'm reaching out to people all day long. Whether or not I'm reaching out to them on DM, on social media, I'm on Slack, I'm on text, you name it. And so I'm sending out 40 to 50 random emails a day, just like, hey, let's catch up. How are you? Been thinking about you. Yeah. Everything is about being on the front foot.
And it's kind of, I mean, Vayner's is it 700 people now?
700 plus.
700 plus, and you've doubled in size in the last few years.
Yes, we have.
So with 700 people across, I think, is it 5 locations?
Yes.
I mean, that reach out and that kind of proactive people approach, it's a big job.
It's huge. It's massive.
It's huge.
It's massive. I work for them though.
Yeah.
So my job is to serve 700 plus people. And in doing that, I need to scale myself and create culture carriers, create people that I know and can trust that have the same sense of wonder when it comes to people and the same sense of belief in purpose and joy. And I know that they can carry that message through all of the offices in 8 different time zones.
In 8 different time zones. So I guess you never stop.
Never stop.
Never stop.
Never stop.
And I mean, Vayner's an agency. It's a social media first digital agency. And you and I have both worked in agencies before, so we know what they're like. It's kind of, cut and thrust, dog eat dog sometimes. There's a lot of stuff happens in an agency. What's it like? I mean, I'm sure you get asked this all the time, like, what's your day like? What's your week like?
Yeah.
Let us into your world a little bit.
Okay, no hour is ever the same.
No
that
hour.
is the one thing I will say. I mean, you've been here for 3 hours now, and you've seen me zig and zag and disappear for minutes and minutes on end. My day is a mixture of things. I come in every single day with the same purpose in my mind, which is, how do I make a safe space for people? How do I make a place where people can belong? That they feel psychologically and physically safe, and that they feel like they're ready to rock and roll. That's my first thing.
That's cool.
That's what I'm doing when I first walk in. And in doing that, I'm walking the floor, and I'm saying hi to people, and I'm just getting a sense of.
So you're being present.
Yeah, being present, making connections.
Invisible.
Yeah. Connection is, that's where you strike the match.
Yeah.
Without connection, there's nothing.
And it's interesting because I think this, your goal of providing that kind of safe space, making people feel safe so that they can do their best work, it's tough to do that in any business these days where the business isn't fully safe. Right. And in an agency where there's change all the time, how do you try and square that circle of, providing safety, which for some people will be continuity and stability, in an environment which is just rammed with change and, I guess, progress?
Yeah. So a couple different ways. The first way I would say is the equation I have rolling around in my head all day, which happens to be connection plus trust plus empathy. So that's something that I need to blanket this agency with. Connection plus trust plus empathy equals loyalty, longevity, resilience, and speed.
Okay.
So that's how we solve business problems, with that loyalty, longevity, resilience, and speed. That's how we get to be first. The first part of that equation, though, the blanket that I'm throwing across the agency all day, is all about caring. It's all about putting people first and making sure that there's no one crying in the bathroom, or the person that has their grandmother sick that we're taking care of, or someone's birthday we're celebrating, or it's a beer bash tonight, or this team has been slogging for a couple different weeks, so we're sending them pizza and ice cream cake at lunchtime. It's super, super important that I have a pulse on what's going on in this agency, so I can act first. I can listen. I certainly am listening and taking in data, but then I'm acting. In some ways I'm reacting, in some ways I'm proactively acting. I'm giving the information I have also to Gary, who can act almost like, behind the scenes, and reach out to people that need that extra TLC or boost.
And you're here in, I guess is the Vayner HQ here in Hudson's Yard, New York. How do you kind of keep your finger on the pulse in the other offices too? Do you have people that help?
Yeah, so we have an HR person, and I'm doing air quotes because I'm not HR. And we changed.
Neither Claude nor I are HR, actually. In fact, we've both managed to get here without having any HR training.
Exactly.
Yes, that's good.
So I have an HR person in London, and then I have one in Los Angeles. And so I know that those coasts are taken care of from an HR perspective. As I said earlier, I'm texting 40 to 50 people all day in random offices at random times of the day, obviously when they're awake, I hope. And so that's my way of also trying to keep my finger on the pulse, because I'll hear back from them, of course. I'm using Slack a lot. We talked about this a while ago.
Transformational, isn't it, Slack?
It absolutely is. And it's a way for me to get a mass message out there. I'm also doing town halls, so I'll do town halls in the HQ here, or I'll go to our other office in New York, where I'm taking some random group of, let's say 25 to 30 people that I'm self-selecting, I'm picking, to get into a room with me and just jam. Most of the time I'm asking them questions, right, to start the conversation.
Give me an idea, what sort of things do you hope to talk about in a jam with the team? What would you talk about?
I want to know how they feel like the culture is brewing. I want to know how they feel like transparency, if we're being transparent enough, are they getting communication that they need? And then I'm listening for either patterns or roadblocks in that conversation. And then I can zig and zag. And where I want to get to in that conversation is I want them to know there are people watching. They're not alone. If there's a problem, thank you for telling me about it. If there's a pattern with that problem, I'm on it. But I need to get that information. Otherwise, I'm going with my gut, which I think is fairly strong, but it's also subjective.
It sounds like you're kind of creating the conduit for listening very much through one-on-one contact or one-on-team contact, rather than what more traditional companies might do, which is the annual survey or the quarterly survey. Tell me about that.
So we do annual reviews, twice a year. What we've just rolled out is radical candor feedback training, which I'm so excited about.
That's cool.
And so we're getting into a place where feedback is much more, if not immediate, current. We just started rolling this out last week, so I'm really, really excited, which is another way for me to get information quickly, especially if it's either phenomenal information that we want to celebrate based on meritocracy, or if it's problematic information and I want to act on that, whether or not that's with a performance plan or whether or not that's with a conversation with me or Gary to figure out what's not jiving here. We do use some surveys. I can throw out an email survey, a pulse survey anytime I want, again, to any different type of population, and ask 3 different questions, which is phenomenal too. But this type of interaction, I'm just going to get so much more by reading your body language and having some kind of warmth and tenderness in the conversation, even if it's a poor conversation.
Even if it's a challenging conversation.
That's right. Not every conversation is it's a rosy day for me.
Yeah, we were saying it's not all rainbows.
Yeah, we're dealing with people and life on life's terms. And, as you and I mentioned earlier, we're dealing with a microcosm that is part of this macrocosm today, which has political strife, and it has natural catastrophes, and it has things that happen in South Carolina, or the bombings in London. Like, this is real life. This is real life. And so I have to remember that when I'm talking to people about their performance or their day or their purpose or their achievements, that all has some kind of real life thrown into it. You know, it's like they're thinking about their grandmother when they're talking to me, or their friend in London, or their friend down in, you know, Florida where the storms were. So
it's interesting that there used to be I've heard over the years, you know, sometimes people say they complain when staff bring their personal life to work. You know, you shouldn't bring your personal problems to work, as if work should be this kind of like somehow hygienic, cleaned place where you're not real. It's not really possible, though, is it? I mean, how would you even do that?
I mean, you have to be such a whiz at compartmentalization.
Yeah.
And while some people might be, that's not my wish for them. My wish is for people to be real here, and for me to be real here. And that means I need to bring my whole self to work, and I need to show up as I am outside. You know, and that's what I try to do to the best of my ability. You know, I do compartmentalize at times because I'm in the position I'm in. Yeah. You know. But I want people. There's nothing sterile about this place. I mean, you see the energy, you feel it. It's, you know, it's like carnival out there.
So, working with young people, and so you're 80% millennial. I'm often interested in, like, I wonder if there's definitely some clear traits about millennials that we didn't have Gen X, but also it says it's just young people at the start of their career.
That's
and
right.
I kind of think I wasn't millennial, but I had many millennial traits. But I think, you know, when you're young and in your start of your career, you haven't kind of built up the kind of armory of tools and defenses that you have when you've been through more of your career. And I was kind of curious as to how you start to build in resilience and just work with people on kind of coping with the ups and downs of work. And I wondered if that's part of what you do.
Part of the coaching that I'll do one-on-one is I'll take people through kind of a map of themselves, and starting with, how does a team see you? What is the value that you bring to a team? And we'll go through what they think their value is. If I have feedback to give them, that's a perfect time for me to give them feedback. When they say to me, I'm strategic, and I say, what does strategic mean, Glenn? And you say, I'm a problem solver. Well, what does a problem solver mean? And you say something else, and I'll say, you know what I think a problem solver means in the context of VaynerMedia is let's see if we can reverse engineer how you solve problems. So that's one way that I'm trying to build in more self-awareness, certainly more empathy and understanding. I use the word tenderness a lot, as I just did with you probably 5 times. I want to get to a place where they know that I'm here to help them be the best selves that they possibly can be, and that we change quickly. You know, we are. Gary is a CEO who is not only a phenomenal salesperson, he's a phenomenal entrepreneur. He's been very disruptive in the space of marketing. Thus, we are as well. So we're not for the faint of heart. I can't tell you that everyone is going to be successful here because of how much we zig and zag, but we really do try to teach certain core fundamental human skills, life skills outside of learning how to code, outside of learning how to put paid media campaigns and optimize them online, learning how to use Photoshop or creating phenomenal videos that belong on your mobile phone. We're also teaching life skills here.
It's interesting. I think any agency, any successful business these days is very fast-paced. Any agency is super fast-paced, and then I think the thing that you do is so special because your context changes. The tools you use, like Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook, those tools are changing all the time, and you often don't even have forewarning that those tools will change.
Right.
It must be interesting working here, thinking you're a Snapchat expert one day, and then tomorrow Snapchat changes all the rules,
right?
And you've got to kind of like relearn or change your pace. So it really is. I can see it not being a place for the faint-hearted.
It's not, and we need people to come along, not only come along for the ride with us, we need them to also get into the driver's seat and drive the car.
Yeah.
Drive their own car, growth, development, opportunities, learning, management, mentorship, all of those things, but also drive the car as a leader. I want to build leaders here. I really do. And if you say to me, hey, Claude, I never want to be a number 1, but I want to be a number 3. Great, let's build you into the best number 3 you can be. And I get that a lot. Or I want to be just like Gary. Well, what is it that you love about Gary? Where is that in you? How can we map those skills or those traits up to what you see as aspirational?
I can't imagine what an army of many Garys would be like. It would be both phenomenal and terrifying at the same time.
It would be amazing.
We'd need an army of many Claudes just to kind of be the yin and yang, I think, to make it right. That'd be great. That'd be great. So, 700 people across VaynerMedia. You must get into some kind of hairy moments just dealing with the day-to-day stuff. What have you learned you've been doing this job for 18 months, kind of, have there been any big learnings, any surprises that you didn't expect when you started the job? So,
yes, the number one surprise and what I've learned are the exact same thing. Don't sweat the small stuff. 99% of the things don't matter. Focus on the 1% that matters, the 1%. Because at the end of the day, there's just noise. And that doesn't mean that people are noise. It just means sometimes it's just drama, or it just belongs over there or there or there. It's just, I've learned to be able to focus in on that 1% a lot quicker.
Is it getting easier to work out what the 1% is? Because I've always sometimes struggled with that, is working out what it is on a day.
It really does depend, and then I have people that can help me find it. I mean, I am certainly not the Wizard of Oz here. And I also have Gary. So I can say to him, what is it that you want me to focus on here? Or I can see in his response where he's taking a response, which is not in the first part of the sentence that I spent so much time writing. It's just that last little word. He's like,
That's the one.
So that I have to say, the learning and the surprise are both the same for me. And I would also say that once again, I am warmed by how resilient people can be. I really think that that's something that it warms me every single day. Yeah.
You're kind of you're pretty special in your role also, because you were an SVP here running a major account for a year and a half before you took a little gap and then came back as Chief Art Officer. So it's kind of unusual for the person doing the HR director's role, the people director's role, to also have walked the walk and done the real job that the people have done too. And I wondered if that helps you to empathise and understand.
I couldn't do this job had I never worked in an agency before. There's no way I could do this job.
It must give you some kind of moral credibility too, that when you're talking to your people out there, and they know that you've done many of their jobs.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they know I've been in agencies for 18 years, and so. And they knew some of them I used to manage. So it not only gives me credibility, it gives me equity.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a little bit of trust there, a little bit more trust. But there's no way I could do my job without knowing what an agency was like. I feel like I would be fake.
Do you think the stresses and strains on people have changed in those 18 years?
Oh, God, yeah. I do. I think the speed of life is so much quicker. I mean, yes, it was fast when I was at an agency back in 1998 or something, but life has sped up, and I really don't know if there's a separation or if there's a balance anymore. What I instead of work-life balance now, I'm really trying to focus on energy management. So managing the energy that I put in rather than focusing on the balance. And I say this to a lot of the people that come through these doors, which is, let's focus on how much energy it's going to take you to do X task. Let's put a milestone there. Then after that milestone, why don't you take a 10-minute lap? Why don't you check Instagram for 5 minutes? Why don't you go downstairs and get a cup of coffee? Managing your energy so that it's just not chaotic energy, because it can really be frenetic or fast. We are in the service of clients here. Clients wanted it yesterday, and it's already tomorrow. So helping people manage their energy and being more mindful of what they're putting out and how maybe they can use that energy to feed themselves rather than deplete themselves. Super important.
It's funny, I think when I was at school and our teachers were teaching us about computerization, long before the internet came out, I remember our computer science teacher said that when we all grew up and we're in the working world, we'd have a leisure time problem. We'd have too much leisure time, and we'd be thinking about what to do with all our leisure time, because computers would be doing all the work. And I think how wrong they were.
Yeah. I mean, where are the robots? I can,
Please,
Alexa,
bring them in.
Yeah.
Bring them in.
Yeah, exactly.
Bring them in.
Yeah, that's wild. I'm sure at some point in the next 20 years, we'll see a lot of roles become more robotic, computerized, AI, artificial intelligence. But, please tell me when a robot will be able to be empathetic.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I just don't know if that will ever happen. Like, I don't know if that could happen in a role that I do or that people on my team do. Or certainly the role that you've done in your life.
And I think, it seems so far anyway on our journey that automation and robotics just makes our job faster somehow, rather than necessarily easier.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, speeds things up.
I'd like to talk a little bit about managers, actually, because obviously in a business with 700 staff, you must have a whole hierarchy of managers. And I know that one of the issues with employee engagement and how people feel about work is often, do we spend enough time on management training? And in a really open culture like Vayner, where you've got a very, very short line from the CEO and the chief heart officer to everybody, managers can sometimes find that difficult to deal with, or they can hunt for their own role. And I wondered how you deal with that and what that's like here.
So the biggest rule of thumb, for sure, is that we don't micromanage at all.
Okay.
So Gary and I come from a place of absolute no micromanagement. You have enormous amounts of runway to run your department, run your team, run your pod the way you wish to do it. We have some loose guidelines. Treat people well.
Right.
Don't be an a-hole.
It's a very important one.
Give feedback. Ask for feedback. We have some basic rules of the road. But when it comes to how you're going to manage your team, we trust that you know how to manage. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't provide management training, and we do. And we provide all different kinds of training. For example, today we have unconscious bias training happening. That's 25 people going through. It's managers, and then we'll roll it out. I was telling you about the radical candor feedback training we're giving. That all was with managers first, and now we'll roll it out. So we're always trying to improve their skills and I guess adapt their skills to a changing workforce. And different people need different things. So what works for the goose might not work for the gander.
I understand.
I may need to manage you differently than I manage those 20 people, and we can do that.
You can do them one-on-one.
Yeah.
Just bringing up and diversity. We're filming this interview at a time when Silicon Valley's been under a lot of exposure on how women are treated there. And there was I found the kind of shocking story last week of the virtual reality startup that had a sex room and the ground floor and all sorts of kind of stuff. And I was just, what more can we do on diversity? I know, where do we start? And the CEO hasn't even been fired.
Yeah.
What more, how do we fix the diversity issue at work? What more can we do?
The first thing I do think we need to get better at is empowering people to communicate. There is no fear in saying that didn't feel good to me. Or there should. My wish is that there is no shame in raising your hand, whether or not that's to me, to your manager, to Gary, and saying, XYZ didn't feel good to me. Can we talk about that? And I also don't think there is any shame in then using teachable moments. But if we don't know that these things are happening, then I feel like I'm using a dart and not really hitting a bullseye, if that makes sense. But allowing the empowerment of people, of all people, to speak up is super important. And so, to me, that goes back to what I was saying to you in terms of belonging. Belonging is super important here. Having a place that is diverse and inclusive is the most important. If you are a person of color, you want to walk in here and see other people of color. If you are LGBTQ, you want to know there's a pride group here. If you have dyslexia, we have tools for that. You know, I can't wait for the day, and I really do think there will be a day when we will have solved, as a human race, I'm an optimist, that we will have solved that in some way, shape, or form. And rather than calling people out for being other, embracing them for being other. And it reminds me of something that I think is important to share at this moment. You know, how we hire has changed. And it's changed in the last 18 months since I've been in this role. So we used to hire for culture fit. I like you. You have a London accent. I used to live in London. I'm sorry, you have a British accent. I used to live in London. Oh, that's great. You have a dog. I have a dog. Terrific. Oh, you like trance music. You're hired. Yeah. I can teach you the rest. The world's changed. Our work has changed. Our work has evolved tenfold since even a year ago. So now we need to hire for skill set fit and culture addition. Right. What are you going to add to this wonderful culture?
That's interesting. That's
what we're doing. So what is your square on that quilt going to look like? I know you're going to be able to do your skill because I hired you to do X, Y, and Z. And I know you can do that based on your CV and maybe a test or references. Now I want you to be able to add your uniqueness. And again, it comes with light guidelines. You're not going to be an a-hole.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's a lovely way to end. So ending with not that you fit our culture, that you add to our culture, that you enhance our culture. Yeah. Claude Silver, thank you so much. You've been amazing.
Thank you so much.
Claude is an amazing guest. Thank you so much. And that's it for us from the VaynerMedia HQ here in Hudson's Yard, New York. Claude has a whole case study in Build It, the Rebel Playbook for Employee Engagement, where she explains everything about how she runs her special coaching sessions here at Vayner. And that's it from me. And you can find more interviews like this all at rebelplaybook.com.